Washing our hands and washing our feet. Washing our hands is something we do many, many, many times a day. Sometimes we simply use hand gel. Sometimes we use soap and water. If you're anything like me, you haven't washed your hands like this since you were a kid, and a parent or a grandparent taught you how to properly wash your hands and to take a good 25 or 30 seconds. In Jesus' day, washing feet was something that took place regularly, as they would be out on dusty roads, and their feet would be covered with the dust and debris of the road when they would come in and gather. And remember, they were just gathering at low tables, kind of like our coffee tables, and they would often be very close to one another's feet. So it was a very important thing that the feet be washed. And as we look at this event of Jesus washing his disciples' feet, it's interesting to note that in the Gospel of John, we don't find an account of the Lord's Supper. And some have said that he intended to substitute this as the image that Jesus was giving in advance of what he was about to do for them on the cross. Even as the bread and cup represent Jesus' broken body and shed blood for the forgiveness of our sins, as Jesus washed his disciples' feet, so he was washing away their sins, and in fact all of our sins. And we'll spend our time reflecting on the meaning of that. What we know from the very first verse is that Jesus loved and served his disciples to the very end. As long as he had breath, he was serving and loving his disciples. Let's reflect a little bit about this event. We wash, and we know this, to get rid of what contaminates, things that contaminate us, those things that are seen and those things that are unseen. We routinely wash hands today that to the naked eye look perfectly clean. But yet we've been told that hands that look perfectly clean, without stain, without anything sticky on them, could in fact be covered with a virus or a bacteria that, if it got inside of us, could make us very sick or even take our life. You know, it's the kind of thing that we have hands that if your mom or my mom had inspected them before dinner to see whether we had actually washed our hands, or if so, if we had done an adequate job, she probably would have given us the green light. Yet we know the truth of whether we've washed them or not. And as we connect the dots, we know the truth of the state of our mind and the state of our heart. We know that if there are things that are contaminating us, or things that we hold, resentments or hostility, or things that we've done that we shouldn't have done. All of those things on the inside that we regret, all of our mistakes, all of our regrets, every sin that we've ever committed, Jesus can wash away and he can make us clean. He said to Peter, unless I wash you, you won't belong to me. You won't be in relationship with me. Jesus is saying, unless I allow him to wash me inside and out, I confess my sin to him, and I confess, I've fallen short. Not just in general in life, but even today. Unless I do that, he says, we won't belong to him. And yet, as John tells us in his first letter, he says, but if we confess our sins, God is faithful and just and will forgive our sins and will in fact cleanse us or wash us from all unrighteousness. He loved his disciples, Jesus did, to the end. You know, we can't hand wash only as often as we feel like. If that was the truth, how many of us would have been done with this long ago? We'd wash our hands maybe a couple of times a day and that would be it. No, as long as we want to remain healthy, we need to continue to wash our hands. Jesus provided a wonderful example of that. He loved them to the very end. And he took on the very thankless, humble job of washing the disciples' feet. They didn't want to wash each other's feet. They might have been willing to wash his feet, but it was Jesus who actually did it. Oswald Chambers said this: drudgery is the truest test of genuine character. Drudgery is the truest test of genuine character. As we receive the never-ending, never-failing love of Christ, we are given, listen to this, we are given the strength and the capacity to continue to love. In these days of confined community and restricted relationships get frayed, don't they? Tempers get short. Arguments erupt in subtle ways, in small ways, and in extreme ways. Jesus' love for you and me is one that never gives up, never fails, always loves, always protects. And as we ask him to fill us with that kind of love, we can continue to love our family members, those with whom we are in close proximity, as long as we need to the very end. For Jesus loved us to the very end. You know, all the disciples needed to be washed by Jesus. All of them needed to be washed by Jesus. And we're not talking about the physical washing of dirt, and we're not even talking about the invisible viruses or bacteria that can get on our skin, or we can breathe in. But we're rather talking about the kind of cleansing that Jesus can provide, where he washes our mind and our heart. You know, there's two kinds of bathing that they talk about in this passage. Jesus says, Peter, if you've taken a bath, then your body is clean. You don't need to have me wash your feet. Just the opposite. If you've taken a bath, then the only thing that you need is for me to wash your feet. And so, to me, that brings up two basic things. There needs to be a point in our lives when we say, God, I've been running my own life. I've been my own master. I've been my own boss. I've been in charge of the whole thing, and I need you, and I confess the fact that I need you, and I want to give you my life. And we need to do that. And if you've never done that, I invite you and encourage you to do that. But the fact is that I did that for the first time almost 50 years ago. And yet, there's a part of me that needs to be washed by Jesus at least on a daily basis. For I say things I shouldn't say, I think things I shouldn't think, and I do things that I shouldn't do. And I can come to Jesus and I can say, Jesus, wash me of that. You might say, well, what's the point? What's the point? Well, what's the harm of the virus, the COVID virus, lingering on your skin? What's the harm? As long as it doesn't get in. But the fact is that the longer it's on my hands, the more likely it is that I'm going to wipe my nose or wipe my mouth, and what has been on the outside of me is going to get into me. What has perhaps not even affected me is going to perhaps affect every part of me. Sin can be like that. A little bit of resentment, unconfessed. a word that we shouldn't have said, that we regret, that we know we should have said sorry, but we didn't, or a little deed that calls for us to say, I'm sorry about the way I handled that. If we confess our sins, these sins, He is faithful and just, and will forgive our sins and will cleanse us from all unrighteousness. I don't know where you're at with all of this, but I do know that Jesus washes us and makes us whole before God, not unlike a bath, and that whatever we've done today that we regret, we can turn to Him now and ask Him to wash us of that as well, so that we will be clean and we will be purified to serve Him and to live for Him as He calls us to. Jesus calls us to do this for one another. He asks us to be part of a humble community in which we serve one another in love, even as He did. And as we serve one another, considering one another better than we are, in the same way that Jesus did, we will build the community that He invites us to build. So may it be. Washing our hands, washing our feet.